Emma froze in the grand hotel hall, staring at Sophie, her best friend and maid of honor. "I have to tell you something," Sophie whispered, her voice shaking. "Years ago, I slept with James." The words hit Emma like a storm. The wedding she had planned perfectly for months now felt like a lie. Every smile, every decoration, every guest suddenly seemed meaningless. Emma couldn't breathe. The glittering chandeliers blurred in her vision as she turned to look at James, who was adjusting his bow tie, completely unaware of the bomb Sophie had just dropped. The sound of her own heartbeat was deafening. She wanted to scream, cry, and run at the same time, but no words came out. Sophie's eyes were full of guilt, but Emma didn't know whether to hate her or herself for trusting her best friend. Claire, the wedding planner, noticed the tension and stepped in cautiously. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Emma shook her head, unable to speak. Sophie fidgeted, avoiding eye contact. Lucy, the bridesmaid, sensed the drama and whispered to Tom, the best man, "Something's wrong." Tom narrowed his eyes at Sophie but didn't ask yet. The hotel room felt smaller with every second, the walls closing in as secrets hovered in the air. Emma's parents, Oliver and Maggie, arrived and immediately sensed the change. Maggie clutched Oliver's arm, whispering, "Something happened. I can feel it." Emma's mind raced. She thought about canceling the wedding, but the thought of everyone judging her was unbearable. James finally noticed the silence and looked confused. "Emma? Sophie? What's wrong?" Emma swallowed hard, the words catching in her throat, knowing once she spoke, nothing would be the same again. Emma finally found her voice, trembling. "Sophie is telling me she slept with you, James, years ago." The room went dead silent. James's face paled, and Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Lucy gasped, and Tom clenched his fists, furious. Emma felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. Nothing about the wedding felt real anymore. She didn't know if she could forgive or even face James without feeling her heart break all over again. James ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the confession. I don't remember it like that," he said slowly, his voice shaking. Emma stared at him, unsure if he was lying or genuinely forgetting. Sophie's guilt deepened. The quiet hum of the hotel felt deafening. Claire shifted uncomfortably, realizing this revelation could ruin months of planning, while Oliver and Maggie looked helplessly at their daughter, unsure how to comfort her. Emma ran her hands through her hair, panic rising. She needed to think, to escape, but the thought of facing the guests later made her stomach twist. Lucy whispered to Tom, "Should we say something?" Tom shook his head, watching James carefully. Sophie was silent now, guilt written all over her face. Claire muttered under her breath about calling the vendors, but no one was thinking about flowers or cake anymore. The wedding felt like it could collapse any second. Oliver stepped forward, his voice firm. "Emma, we need to know what you want to do. Now." Emma shook her head violently, trying to clear her thoughts. Maggie's eyes welled up. "Sweetheart, maybe it's better to postpone," she said gently. Sophie's lips trembled, waiting for Emma to speak, while James looked like a man lost at sea. Emma realized she had to make a decision fast: postpone, cancel, or pretend nothing happened and move forward. Emma finally sat down, burying her face in her hands. I don't know if I can marry him now," she admitted. Sophie's tears fell freely. James's jaw tightened, his mind racing for answers. Lucy tried to comfort Emma, but her hand felt useless. Tom glared at Sophie, furious but holding back. Claire sighed, realizing this was more than a wedding problem. This was emotional chaos that couldn't be fixed with decorations or schedules. James finally spoke, voice low and urgent. Emma, we need to figure this out. I need to know if you believe me or not. Emma looked up, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to believe him, but the doubt in Sophie's eyes made it impossible. Maggie whispered to Oliver, "This is worse than I thought." The room felt heavy, the air thick with betrayal, fear, and heartbreak. Nobody moved. Nobody knew what would happen next. Emma stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need space," she said firmly. She walked toward the window, staring at the gray English sky outside. Sophie tried to follow, but Emma held up her hand. "Go," she whispered, voice sharp. James stepped closer, but Emma shook her head. Tom muttered under his breath, "Finally, some sense." Claire glanced at the vendor's arrival schedule, realizing everything was unraveling. Outside, the rain started lightly, matching the gloom inside. Emma pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching the rain streak down. Her mind spun with memories of James and Sophie, trying to remember if there were signs she had ignored. Every happy thought about their wedding now felt like a lie. She hated feeling betrayed, but part of her wondered if she was overreacting. The hotel room felt silent, except for the soft patter of rain, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Sophie finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Emma, I never wanted to hurt you. It was years ago. I thought it meant nothing, but I didn't think it would come back to this." Emma didn't answer, her fists clenched at her sides. James watched silently, guilt and confusion battling in his expression. Tom whispered to Lucy, "I knew there was something off about her," while Claire shook her head, wishing she could make it all disappear. Oliver stepped closer to Emma. "You can't make this decision alone," he said, his voice firm but gentle. Emma shook her head, tears spilling down. Maggie placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe a pause is better," she suggested. Emma wanted to scream and run, but she stayed still, feeling the weight of every eye on her. Outside, the sky darkened further, and the first rumbles of thunder made her flinch. James sat down on a chair, exhausted. "Emma, I don't want to lose you, but we need honesty now," he said quietly. Emma swallowed hard, unsure she could speak. Sophie averted her eyes, feeling the tension crush her. Lucy whispered to Tom, "This is like a soap opera," but even she felt the weight of the moment. Claire pinched the bridge of her nose, realizing no amount of planning could fix what had been broken. Emma finally spoke, voice shaking but firm. "I need time. I need to think. I can't just pretend nothing happened." James nodded slowly, pain in his eyes. Sophie lowered her head, tears flowing freely. Tom muttered angrily. Finally, she said it, while Lucy put a comforting hand on Emma's shoulder. Outside, the rain intensified, slashing against the windows, like the anger and confusion inside the room. Emma retreated to her hotel room, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the hall. She sat on the edge of the bed, hugging her knees, trying to stop her thoughts from spinning. Sophie knocked softly, but Emma ignored it. Outside, the rain pounded harder, like a drum of chaos. Emma realized that the wedding she had dreamed of was now a storm she couldn't control. Sophie finally opened the door slightly, peeking in. "Emma, I just want to say I'm sorry," she whispered. Emma turned her head sharply, anger and hurt in her eyes. "Sorry doesn't fix this," she shouted. Sophie froze. The apology hung in the air like a fragile thread. Outside the window, lightning split the sky, reflecting the chaos inside the room. James knocked on Emma's door, voice hesitant. "Can we talk, please?" he said. Emma shook her head. "I don't know if I can face you," she admitted. Tom appeared in the hallway, arms crossed, glaring at James. "Maybe now you understand the mess you're in," he muttered. The hotel corridor felt suffocating as the storm outside raged, echoing their emotions. Claire paced the main hall, phone in hand. Vendors were arriving, guests were expecting, but the bride and groom were in chaos. She felt powerless, wishing she could rewind time. Lucy joined her, whispering, "Do you think it's over?" Claire shook her head. "Nothing is over until Emma decides," she replied. The tension in the hotel was thick enough to touch, like static before a storm. Emma finally stepped out of her room, wrapped in a shawl, eyes red from crying. James approached slowly, hands raised slightly. "Emma, please," he started. She stopped him with a glance. "Not yet. I need more time," she said firmly. Sophie followed behind, tears still flowing. Guests began arriving, unaware of the drama inside. Outside, the storm broke into heavy rain, as if England itself was mourning the broken trust. Guests began arriving, chatting excitedly in the hotel lobby, unaware of the chaos behind the closed doors. Emma sat in a quiet corner, watching them, feeling like an outsider in her own wedding. Every laugh and smile reminded her of the betrayal she had just learned. Sophie hovered nearby, wringing her hands, unsure if she should stay or leave. James stood across the room, watching Emma, helpless and frustrated. Tom pulled James aside. "You need to be honest now, or everything is gone," he whispered. James nodded, a cold weight in his chest. Sophie's eyes followed him nervously. Emma noticed the whispers and tensed. She could feel that something more was about to unfold. The air felt thick with anticipation, like a storm about to hit again, and nobody could predict who would break first. Claire tried to keep the vendors calm. "Flowers, cake, everything is still on schedule," she said, forcing a smile. But even she felt the tension gnawing at her nerves. Lucy peeked around the corner, whispering to a server about the drama unfolding. Emma remained silent, watching the room, every detail of the wedding feeling meaningless now. The contrast between celebration outside and chaos inside made her chest ache. James finally approached Emma directly. "I swear it meant nothing. I was young and stupid," he said, voice low but desperate. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can believe you," she replied. Sophie flinched, guilt making her shoulders shake. Tom clenched his fists behind James, ready to intervene if needed. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the rain tapping the windows. Oliver stepped forward, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Take a deep breath. Don't make a decision out of anger," he said. Emma closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. Maggie hugged her lightly. Sophie whispered, "I'm sorry," again, but Emma didn't respond. James looked defeated, and Tom's glare softened slightly, realizing this was not just about anger, it was about trust. The storm outside had calmed, but inside, hearts were still breaking. Emma finally stood, taking a deep breath. "I need to hear everything, from the beginning," she said, her voice steady but trembling. James nodded, and Sophie swallowed hard, realizing there was no hiding anything anymore. Lucy and Tom watched silently, both curious and worried. Claire quietly stepped back, knowing this conversation would decide the wedding's fate. Outside, the last raindrops fell, leaving the streets wet and glistening in the soft English sunlight. James spoke first, recounting the past honestly. Sophie listened quietly, guilt heavy in her chest. Emma's hands clenched and unclenched as she tried to process each word. Some of it made sense, some didn't. The tension in the room felt like a rope stretched to its limit. Tom muttered under his breath. Finally, the truth, while Lucy's eyes widened at the revelations. Sophie finally spoke, her voice breaking. I regret everything. I never meant to hurt you, Emma. I didn't know how to tell you until now. Emma's face softened slightly, but her eyes still held hurt. James reached out, hesitating. Emma pulled back gently. Maggie and Oliver exchanged nervous glances. The room was quiet, except for heavy breathing, the storm outside fully gone, leaving a calm but tense afternoon light. Emma finally made a decision. I need time apart. I can't marry you right now, she said, looking at James. James nodded slowly, understanding. Sophie looked relieved but sad, knowing Emma needed space. Tom finally relaxed slightly, while Lucy tried to offer comfort. Claire quietly started calling vendors to postpone arrangements. The wedding was no longer happening today, but the weight of the truth brought clarity to everyone in the room. Emma stepped outside into the cool, clear English afternoon. The air felt fresh, like a new beginning. She took a deep breath, feeling both pain and relief. James stood at a distance, watching respectfully. Sophie stayed behind, tears drying. Emma realized she didn't need to rush forgiveness, only honesty and time. Life would continue, the wedding postponed, but the truth had been faced, and for the first time in days, she felt a fragile sense of peace.